All right, this is going to be a raking tutorial. If you don't know what raking is, it's a mashing technique. It uses the R button on a Switch controller, so this one right here, or on a an SNES controller, like this one. This one's a bit wider and depressed further into the controller, but it would still work. So, how do you go about doing this in Dread specifically? That's the first question. If you go down to the accessibility tab in system settings on your Switch 1 or your Switch 2, you can select button mapping. And normally in Dread, your shot is on Y. And you can kind of see on this controller, Y is a very crowded button. There's a control stick near it, home button near it, pause button near it. There's just so many buttons near it, and it's so inconvenient. Both the R button, it's just the R button and then ZR, or L button if you're not going to use the L button. Trust me, for this, it's much easier with R. So the setup I use, and this can be used on any controller that doesn't have back paddles. I put shot on Y, so I changed R to Y, and I changed Y to ZL, which is normally the slide button. So Y is my new slide button. And then I changed ZL to R. So that is now my missile activate button. That's not the only control scheme that works. If you have back paddles, so these buttons back here, you don't need to rebind slide. You can instead, you still rebind R to shoot, but then you rebind one of these to R. And it doesn't really change like how you move around the game or anything. It just changes what button you use for missile. Uh, in my opinion, this is a less effective control scheme, but if you're not like super concerned about getting the most damage possible out of the rake, then don't worry about it. And just go with whatever feels more comfortable to you. And most likely, if you use the scheme I use, you're going to have to relearn how to play the game. I switched over at around hour 2000, so I had to undo 2000 hours of muscle memory in order to switch to this because playing with slide on Y is so much different than playing with it on ZL. Don't worry about the D-pad setups here. They don't matter for this video. But yeah, that's the button scheme that you're gonna use. Or one of those two button schemes. I think there's more that work, but they get like really weird, and I would try to stick with one of these two. So why are we even raking in the first place? In this game, a lot of bosses, it is the fastest possible DPS is to hit them with your uncharged shot. And in this game, your uncharged shot is uncapped. So in theory, you can fire it 30 times a second. However, there aren't really any consistent ways to do that. So, yeah, this is faster, but there's a problem. It's not just this you need on a lot of bosses. You also need to be able to aim, which means you need to hold the L button and the control stick at the same time. And you need to be able to press the missile button so you can fire missiles while you are mashing. And then you also need to use your other buttons like jump and flash shift and melee, and it's just like you need to use all your buttons. So this control scheme is made in mind with that. So you're not sacrificing any movement really, or any like mobility, I guess you could say. Or you're sacrificing minimal mobility. It's definitely harder to play like this, but it is something you can get used to. Alright, so how do you do it? The first thing I would just drive into your brain is your controller position. I tend to hold it up against my rib cage, and then I have like an armrest I sit my elbow on, and that way I'm like in the most relaxed possible position for this. You can hold it out here if you want, or higher up, lower down, whatever is more comfortable to you. But the best position I found is right up against the bottom of my ribs, and then placing my other arm on something to create stability. Another important thing is hand position. So you do need to curl your fingers up a little bit so that they're all of your fingernails are aligned with each other. And then you would just be moving up and down on the button. So very, very simple. You also want to keep the controller as you want to keep the button itself perpendicular with the ground, basically. Like, just imagine there's a long pole going from the ground to the ceiling. You just want to imagine it perpendicular with that, basically. That will help with consistency. Another thing is trying to use the edge of the button here rather than the middle. The edge of the button will allow you to get lighter inputs more consistently. So it's easier to get 1 or 2 frame inputs on the very edge rather than in the middle. Like, as you can see, I'm kind of like struggling a little bit if I go in the middle. But if I'm on the edge, it's just like this constant stream for the most part. You're always going to have some hitches. Alright. So, another thing about this is this isn't about us going as fast as possible. Like, I can do this. It's not going to help. You want to have a relaxed up and down motion. Don't go crazy with it. This, like, I'm still mashing at like 18, 19 times per second here. Also, the amount of fingers you use matters. If you use 2 fingers, you do need to move faster. And you're trying to keep the button in between your starting finger and your ending finger. You generally don't want it to go past either of those, but it's not the end of the world if it does. So with 2 fingers, you're generally going faster. Same motion, just up and down. With 3 fingers, same thing, up and down, but it's just a little bit slower. I would say 3 fingers. 3 fingers is what I would recommend. I really wouldn't do 2 fingers for too long, because you'll definitely run into some hand issues if you do that. Whereas with 3 fingers, it's a lot slower, so you're not straining your tendons anywhere near as much. Another thing about this technique, which is beneficial compared to other techniques, mashing techniques, is you're recruiting more muscles in your arm. So you're spreading the load of the force that you're trying to generate more evenly across your arm. You can still get hand issues and arm issues from this, but it is way, 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 way less severe than if you're doing something like this, or especially if you're jitter mashing, which I'm not going to do because I don't want to screw up my hand at all. So you can use 4 fingers for this. You'd be using your pinky. The problem with that is obviously the pinky is a smaller finger, so it's a little more uneven, and you need to use a slightly different technique. It doesn't really work on a Switch controller, but it does work on a SNES controller. The idea is when you're going, rather than just going straight up or down, you're also rotating a little bit. So you're like making an oval shape almost, if that makes sense. So it's not a wide oval, but it is an oval. I'm not very good at it on the Switch controller, but I'm sure you could get consistent at it. And realistically, this is the only way to get to like 30 hertz mashing, basically. But it's very hard. very inconsistent in my experience, and I would not recommend it unless you are going for like the craziest times of all time. And for this game specifically, a lot of the time you're going to add in missiles. So the grip I use for that, I still use my thumb for the control stick, use my index for the free aim button, and then I will use my middle finger for the missile button. If you're using a back paddle, you would use your ring finger for that, just because it's kind of hard to reach your middle finger down there comfortably. Um, but this allows you the most freedom of movement. Like, I can start moving in the rest of the game normally. But yeah, I mean, that's basically all there is to it. Just make sure, focus on the hand positions. Go slow. Don't try to rush it. I mean, like, I'm making this look pretty easy right now, but it does take time to get to this speed. And you're not going to be fast all the time. Sometimes you're going to have off days, or you're going to mash like 1 or 2 hertz slower than normal. But as long as you stick with it, you can get consistent at it. I mean, I've gotten consistent with it. Delusional Prince is consistent with it. I think Justin Zane's consistent with it. Arcandy is at this point. Tons of other people have tried it and found success. So I would, if you're going to play this game, and especially if you don't want to use turbo, I would really suggest learning this. And if you do want to use turbo, I would still suggest trying this anyways, because you might understand how the game processes certain inputs better. At least from my experience. I found it kind of hard to gauge like how little I needed to press the missile button with turbo. But without turbo, it became very obvious because I'm doing the inputs myself. So I can feel when the button is being pressed, and that way I miss as few missiles as possible. But anyways, that's it. Again, totally down to answer any questions about this. I'll put my Discord tag in the description. And yeah, see you.